Good morning, everybody. The following was supposed to be an interview of me, but Jeanmarie and I got into a great conversation. So basically, this is two transplant recipients talking about life, death, overcoming obstacles, and all sorts of other things.
I've allowed you to record.
Great. That's it. Now be careful what you say. Did you specifically have a transplant or did I make that up?
I did. Nope,
Oh,
I did.
what was your transplant?
So I had a
I may
kidney
ask.
transplant.
Kidney transplant. Wow. Okay.
Yes. I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis when I was 16 and received my transplant when I was 24. And I'm not a support group person. And so as I started connecting and doing peer-to-peer mentoring with other transplant patients, I'm like, they don't know,
Mhm.
they just don't know how to empower themselves to find the information. Like they're too scared. So that's kind of where I was like, you know what? I have this wealth of information that I've learned over 20 years, and I would really like to kind of give back to people.
Interesting. Well, similar thing for me. It sort of all stemmed from the same thing, of feeling like, hmm, you're being told you're going to die, and then all of a sudden you don't die, and all of these things start working. I was like, oh my God, I have to put this stuff out there because it's helping, and it wasn't supposed to be helping. There's so much that you learn by experimentation, like you say, by going online and becoming your own doctor, that people sometimes don't realize they can go do. There's so much information. Some not so good, some you don't want to hear. It's like when I tell people I always Google benefits of da 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 because you don't want to see all of the horrible things that you can see. So you have to sort of know how to Google for your own brain, but there is so much out there that's so helpful.
There is, and it's just you got to figure out kind of where you want to start and what you need at the time. Because when I take some crazy new medication, I actually like to know what the worst side effects are
Right.
so I can weigh
Yeah,
out, do I really want to take that?
right.
Is the benefit really going to be outweigh the risk?
Hmm.
Then it depends. Then I like to know the benefits as well. So it just depends on where my mind is.
Yes. Well, for sure, with medication, you want to know the bad and the good. But it's sort of like lung transplants, for example. After a transplant, I'm like, I'm not looking up lung transplant, anything negative, because so much comes up that I don't want to see. And I'm a huge believer in mindset and about keeping your mind where it needs to be to get you where you need to go. And so when I look up, let's say lung transplants, I'm like, successful experiences with great food, with lung transplant, it's so defined because I'm like so opposed to seeing anything that has anything negative associated with it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I also, well, I do a plant-based diet and I've been doing that for 12 years.
Mm,
And although I don't tell people that they should be doing it, but it makes my body feel good. And so I know that it's a good choice for me. So I think that when you're trying to decide, am I drinking enough water? Am I drinking too much water? Or it's just a balance of whatever your body needs and how you can feel
mm.
good. Because if I don't feel well, then I feel like I don't look good, and then I can't like keep
Do
moving forward in my life, and I can't exercise. And so it all helps with the mental part of it too.
exactly. Crazy. It's 12 years. I had 12 years of completely vegan, essentially, diet for 12 years as well with pH. Okay, side note, I have no sense of time. It was actually 7 years that I was on a full vegan diet, which helped me so much. And it's like I the same as you. I don't necessarily tell everybody to just go do that, but it was so helpful for me that it's unbelievable what food can do. It really sustained me for so long until the transplant. It's insane.
I don't know if I necessarily, I mean, I'm not going to go back to eating meat, but um, it's really helped me to meal prep and be really cognizant of what I'm putting in my body.
Hmm.
And, because we're putting in all these pharmaceuticals. And so
Yeah.
I don't want things in my body that are going to take forever to digest or have a hard time to digest. And if I prepare my food, then I'm less likely to go out to eat or use
Exactly.
processed food. So I do, that's why I say plant-based because I make everything from scratch.
Right.
So
Amazing.
I
It's
can
your medicine.
control
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, you've
So
come to the right place. I mean, I firmly believe that food and excuse me, and exercise, which at that time meant walking to my couch, but essentially building on that. But food and exercise in the mind, it's everything. It's literally the greatest thing you can do for yourself is take care of those things. So great that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's been helps a lot. And it helps my mind too. I feel like it puts me in a positive
Hmm.
place that I know that I'm doing what I can do to
Exactly.
help control my lupus and slow
Ex-
down the CKD because it's still gonna come back. So
mm. Yeah, you have to remain, it's maintenance, really. I don't know if you are on prednisone as well. Are you after?
I
You are.
am. That's what started the journey. I
And
was very sad about my moon face.
I had major, major moon. I hid from the world with that sized face. And then I started coming back around when it was smaller. Now I look back, I'm like, wow, even the smaller face was so much bigger than I thought at the time. But because of prednisone, blood sugar became a real issue for me. So the vegan diet was trickier because there's so many carbohydrates. And I was like, how do I lower my blood sugar? So that's why I've gone a little bit more into almost like a keto, occasional meat, but mostly vegetable based life. It's tricky because it's not pH anymore and it's not PVOD that I lived with. It's transplant. So it's like a new life that's kind of different in a way, based on medication, based on, like you were saying, but counteracting side effects of medicine and just finding sort of my own way to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part is that everyone kind of finds what really works for them, what makes them feel good.
Exactly. Well, it's nice to talk to somebody who's also had a transplant and who's doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the list for a new one. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I'm
mm,
at 15%, but
oh my.
I'm still going along, I mean,
Okay.
it's a 9-year wait here in Southern California.
Dr.
Yeah.
Artahali, who was my surgeon at UCLA, released a TED Talk recently about the future of transplants. And it's so life-changing what they're working on I'm going to send it to you. Uh,
Okay.
honestly, anybody watching, watch this TED Talk. So basically, they're healing organs outside of the human body. So they're able to now create opportunities for so many more people to receive organs. They're able to preserve the life of organs in a way that allows for you to receive organs from all around the world. So I think that things are really changing and fast. So, which could be hopeful to you because hearing 9 years sounds crazy compared to what his video made it seem. Yeah, I'll send you that link.
Yeah.
Post
I
this.
love to see just kind of the science going
Yeah,
behind everything because it kind of gives you hope for
absolutely.
sure.
What do you feel on your bad days? Like, what is it? Is it physical, any sort of pain, or what are you feeling as your oh no feeling? You know what I
It
mean?
is. That's probably it's otherwise like I don't really think that I have a transplant when otherwise. But the days that my arthritis is hurting or I have really bad headaches or just overall extreme fatigue where I cannot get out of bed,
Mm,
um, those are, or if I get a virus,
yes.
and I've had several viruses over my transplant journey, or also rejection episodes, and all these medications, and just when I can't go out hiking or go to the beach and doing the things that I love,
Yeah.
it's really, really hard for me to kind of come out of that. So I've learned to not force myself out of it,
Hmm.
but I acknowledge my feelings of being sad, being angry, being fearful. This is why I started doing photography, is because I take photos of the, I mean, in Southern California, we're surrounded by so much beauty. And so I take those photos and I look at them and I remember when I edit them, I try to make it like I'm there and what I was feeling when I was there. And so it takes me back to that feeling and that moment. And that helps me kind of come out of
The
this
present.
little sad, yes, little moment.
I can't say I don't understand. I mean, thank God things have gone well, but there's always that feeling. For me, it's not so much the feeling, it's the fear of it. So I'm like, oh, like I have a stomach ache. I'm like, oh my God, does that mean I'm going to die? And then I have a headache and I'm like, oh no, does that mean I'm going to die? And so it's, and my brain will just go crazy. And funny enough, not that funny, but it's about life and death, that I just put a video up about this because somebody had asked me about how do you deal with those thoughts of basically dying? Like, what if you die? And how do you get through that? And how do you plan ahead? Because how do you know you have the time? And so I just went into that whole thing and posted it today, actually, about my infamous poster, which is sitting right there. I actually flipped this city to give you trees instead of a wall and a kitchen, but it says, what if everything goes right? And it sounds so simple, but it has been literally my saving grace. And the theory, obviously, behind it is that if everything does go right, then what a waste it would have been to have spent my life thinking it wouldn't, right? So even in those difficult times, the wait a second, maybe this is just a difficult time. What if it really does go right? And this is just part of the process. I don't know if that's of any help to you, but it's like such a simplified thing that for me is so helpful of all things.
I
Uh,
love it. Yeah.
in the beginning of the transplant, I don't know how you handled the beginning, but I was like, oh my gosh. They were like, can you next week come down? I was like, next week? I said, I can't even plan tomorrow. What if I'm not here tomorrow? And then you learn how to kind of trust that timing. And then in a week, you're like, oh, maybe I can plan for 2 weeks. And then it's like, oh, maybe I can plan for a month. And I think as you live, you start again trusting more and more. And that allows for that ability to do more of that, and to go a little further along with regard to your planning. But it's all these interesting things that we don't think about, or that at least I didn't think about until this happened, until I was living with first two fatal illnesses. I thought about it, but transplant, I think about it, and it's totally normal. I mean, we're all, like I said in my video, we're all mortal. So at some point we're headed out, but nobody knows when,
Yeah.
nobody has any idea. And I always recount like the story of me being in the ICU on ECMO, which is life support, and I can't move, I can't breathe. They're like, you're gonna die. We don't have lungs. And it's the end of my life basically. And then somebody else like falls out of bed and hits their head on the floor and dies. And so it's like that concept of, which I repeat a lot, but when it's your time, it's your time. And so live your life, like just live your life and kind of let go in a way. Because I think we hold on so much. And I'm speaking of myself, it's like I say this to help myself a lot, but to just let go and live. And if there are times that are difficult and there are times that are better, and those times that are terrible kind of remind us when it's better that, oh, we're so lucky, because we're still here and may we continue to be here.
Yeah.
Send
I
out a little
mean,
prayer when I can. Yeah.
I mean, there's probably my late 20s is kind of when I came to terms with, because since I was diagnosed when I was 16, I was like, oh, my life is done. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is it. So I really came to terms with death at that
Really
time.
young. Yeah.
And for a while, I was kind of like, well, I'm invincible. It's fine. But then there was a part of me that was like really being held down by just really upset that my life would be so short. And so I actually would go to like psychics
Mm-hmm.
and I'd ask them, like, do you see that my life is short? And everyone's like, no, and so
Well,
whether it's true or
oh,
not, but it helped me kind of like a therapy in a way because I
yeah.
was like, what am I doing? Anyone can die at any moment, at any time. I am fortunate enough, almost in a way, that I know, like I'm
Yeah.
faced with it every day that my life is short. And I just kind of started blossoming and like, you know what? Who cares? I'm gonna do the best that I can every single day. And I'm going to try and I'm going to be kind to everybody that I meet, as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And
Except for few, right?
knowing
Yeah.
how to add that asterisk.
Exactly.
And,
Oh,
just really live like it is my last day, but with tomorrow coming as well. Like there's been a nice balance. And ever since I found that balance,
mhm.
now I feel like I can actually live. Like I feel like I'm living.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like what I say, I woke up. Like for the first time, really, after my transplant, I just woke up and I could see the world in such a different way. And I would have gone through my life, sort of what you're saying, I think half asleep if this had not happened. And so it's a huge wake up to like experience your moments and to be where you are and to maximize your experience here on earth. Every day is a big deal. And if we only all thought that, but it's really hard to think that even in a situation like this, when things are sometimes so great, like which is such a luxury, like when I call them like human problems, right? When things are like right now, this is probably has nothing to do with this, but I'm going through this identity theft case, right? Which is so time consuming, exhausting, and awful because somebody's has pretended to be me basically. But I think to myself, wow, like this really sucks. But I would have given anything when I was in the ICU to have had to deal with identity theft. You know what I mean? It constantly brings back the perspective. And it's like this weird blessing in disguise that freaks you out, but yet makes you so aware and so appreciative and so grateful for everything that it's almost like a joke, right? I mean, everywhere I go, I'm like, I'm so grateful to be alive. They're like, oh, okay, okay. But it's really true. I'm so
Yeah.
conscious of that.
Yeah, I think we feel it. I just feel like, we don't just say it, like we actually really truly feel it.
You're in the process of waiting essentially for a new kidney.
Yes. When they told me that I was going to be on the list in September, August, September, um, I was like, oh my God, I might not get another kidney because I have an antibody problem. So that means that they are not just a high antibodies, but we just can't get rid of them. We've tried
Mhm.
plasmapheresis and stuff. So that means it's gonna be harder to match me. Because
Yeah.
at first I was like, wow, so this is it, and then I was like, you know what, I better go on my dream trip to Italy. And I did it. I had to go alone because everyone was flaking. So I was like, you know what,
Just
I'm gonna do
go.
it.
Great that
And I
you.
did it. And at first, it was like a sad thing because I was like, wow, this is like the end of a life. And then by the middle of the trip, I was like, this is just going to be the next chapter,
Yeah.
like don't think those things, because I'm going to need to come back to Italy. I'm going to need to live here.
Yes.
So I was like, this is just going to be a new chapter. So when I came back, I had a whole new perspective about it. I've been stable now at 15%, and I could be potentially stable for
Mhm.
up until 9 years when the transplant happens.
Or
So,
not. If this genetic part of what Dr. Arhali was talking about is the most interesting ultimately about taking, like, I think it's part of the genetic coding of the new organ. And I might have this all wrong, but putting the genetic coding into the host. So there's
yeah,
which I don't know if that solves your issue, but might, because then there's no possibility of rejection.
right.
Really look into that because I don't know that it's just sounded like the most inspiring and life-changing thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep bringing that back when you're like, there's no hope, because I'm like, there is so much hope. It's insane. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
imagine you're doing all the kidney cleansing things that you can possibly do that makes sense for you.
Yeah. And staying active. Like it is really easy on some days where I just don't feel well because it's that fatigue, that
Hmm.
super intense fatigue. And I will force myself to either do like a chair yoga or
Hmm.
even stretches, just kind of getting the blood going. It always makes me feel better, even when I don't want to. Whatever my body needs or feels that day.
Yeah, well, I know that so well, especially with pulmonary hypertension, because it's I mean, and PVOD, pulmonary veno-occlusive disease, which is even worse than pulmonary hypertension, but basically limits your ability to do anything. When I was first diagnosed and I was in heart failure, I couldn't go to the bathroom. Like it was so difficult to get to stand up and walk to the bathroom that it was just insane. And I would push myself, like you're saying, that little push. Like I thought, all right, today I'm going to get to the bathroom. Tomorrow, however long it takes me, I'm going to get down into the lobby of the building. Right. And that was it. And then I was like, wow, I did that, and just knowing that you're doing that is what is so helpful, even more so than the physical part. It's like the psychological part. And then the next day it was like, well, I'm just going to make it outside I was in New York City onto a block, just stand out there and breathe wonderful New York City air. And then it was a full 2 blocks the next day. And I pushed that and pushed that. And then I ended up on a treadmill. This was quite a bit later, but jogging for a minute I could do with guided help from a wonderful human being named Noah Greenspan. So shout out to Noah Greenspan. And I was able to really push that. And that was technically impossible. You know, PVOD has a life expectancy of under a year, and PH, I think it's like 2.5 years. And so you're not supposed to get better, you're supposed to get worse. No matter what happens to me now in my life, I've already had the experience of living with 2 fatal illnesses that were supposed to be progressive and kill me. And they didn't. They got better. My pressures, instead of going up, went down from 180, which normal is under 25. 180 is like shocking. And they went down to 32 over the course of years. So everybody was like, what are you doing? How is this happening? And I try to tell that story as much as I can, because it was the impossible, you know, and when you don't have a story out there to follow or to look up to, it's very difficult to believe that it is possible. But when you do, and that could just be one person that did it, right? I thought, how can I turn myself into that one person? Because I would have wanted that for myself. You know, when I was first diagnosed, I would have been like, oh, where's that person that can make me know it's possible? You know, so that kind of became my mission in all of this. And it's very empowering. I think that's the main word that it sounds like you're trying to do as well with people, is to kind of help give them their sense of power back, because it's the one thing that we lose. We lose a lot, but that's probably the most important thing we lose when we have a diagnosis, especially when it's fatal. It's like, wow, there's nothing I can do, you know, and that's a very dangerous place to be.
You know, it's important to have your own goals
Mhm.
and not what somebody else's goals
For
are.
sure. How did you shift your mindset when you were in Italy and you were first kind of, you know, how you said halfway through it shifted for you? Is there something that happened that created that shift?
It was just being there and really feeling like I was on top of the world, just doing something that I've always wanted to do,
Mhm.
eating the food that I always wanted to eat. Venice is kind of where everything kind of changed, because I actually didn't care to go there because it's kind of touristy,
Right.
but it was so beautiful and so unique.
Mhm.
And just watching, I like watching people. So just watching everybody just living their life. And I was just like, huh, yeah, this is it. You know, I think getting out of your everyday life of going to get labs and going to
Right.
this doctor and going to this doctor. And
Mhm.
um, I mean, I was just like, I felt really free.
It's like immediate dose of perspective. So taking yourself out of that world of medicine and yuck and putting
Yeah,
yourself somewhere else is key.
yeah.
I mean, ideally, you can keep doing that.
And you don't have to go to Italy to do
No,
that. You
you
can
have
do
to
that.
go specifically to Venice. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I go get labs and I'm sitting there in those chairs with everybody else at 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
I'm feeling sorry for myself
Yeah.
because, you know, I can go on Instagram and I can see all my friends and what they get to do. And like I always give myself a treat after my labs or a doctor's appointment. Like I go out to eat or go to the beach or
Mhm.
something.
To shift the vibe. Yeah. Well, I understand that. I remember that in the very beginning. Like you constantly have to be monitored. And if there's a feeling of yuck with regard to all of that, that's kind of an inexplicable yuck. I would turn on automatic in a way. I guess I just kept focusing and keep now, because now still, you know, but it's less frequent. But I guess I just keep my focus on the fact that my close call was such a close call that I'm almost, my gratitude goes into the hospital too, where I'm like, thank God I'm alive. And this is what I have to do, blood work. I take it a step further because wow, the experience that I had, not just for the 12 years, but building up to the transplant with the cardiac arrest, and I was in a coma and I was on life support ECMO, and that machine, whoo, is so painful. And it was one thing after the other of a doctor coming in and saying, now we have to sew you up. And we can't give you this. We have to just do it right. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they're sewing this thing and there's no anesthetic after that. And the pain of that, it's the next thing that happens and you can't move. And it's an inexplicable situation. And you just have to get through it. If you don't, you just die. You have to take this or else. So your body goes through something kind of insane that I remember that, even though I don't want to remember that. But when I'm going through something that's not so enjoyable, it's like we have a running joke in the house of, well, at least you're not on ECMO. There's that constant, it's like a joke, but it's like, I'm lucky I can come just do blood and get out of here. And hopefully the blood looks good. And I mean, hospital stays are no fun and terribly depressing. But even like in that, I try to remind myself it's not what it was, So I think that has really awakened me to a different kind of way of thinking. But also, to be fair, I've been very lucky. And so I pray that that continues. But I don't know what you're going through specifically. And I don't want to know, of course, but I'm sorry that you're going through that because that is not enjoyable at all. And I know that feeling, even though I'm not going through that, I know the feeling because I have been through my own version of that for so many years, where every time I went to the doctor, it was over. And it was like I was going to hear the news that this time I'll be dead by tomorrow. It's so programmed, So it's terrible that you have to go through that. And I really do hope that what's happening is exciting and can serve you because I know I keep coming back to that, but it's so inspiring what's happening in the world, specifically of transplants, that I'm like the hardest transplant with lungs. So I think that everybody's covered. If lungs are covered, everybody else is good. You know what I mean? Obviously, there was something we had to learn from this, and we're learning as we go. I really did flip this interview on you. Is there
Sure
anything
did.
you'd like me to answer since this is technically your interview?
Well, I had a whole thing here.